Business news from you. Let's start with you, Catherine. Economic help is at hand, says the French government, for businesses that really are going to struggle, let's face it, with a second lockdown.
That's absolutely right. And we're seeing a lot of the same economic help that we saw through the first lockdown that we saw rolled out at that time early in the year. So the government is estimating a total cost of 15 billion euros, which will be spent during each month of lockdown. Now, for the moment, the lockdown is extended to the 1st of December, but that could be prolonged along with this financial help if necessary. So that 15 billion euros breaks down like this. 7 billion euros will go into a furlough scheme. That's the partial unemployment that the French government introduced earlier in the year. Now, that money will help companies continue to pay their workers 84% of their salary, even if they're not able to actually work. 6 billion euros will go into a solidarity fund. Now, this fund is a direct aid for small and medium-sized businesses who've lost a large part of their earnings because of the lockdown. 1 billion will go towards paying the social security charges for companies so that they don't have to, and around 1 billion extra euros will contribute to helping businesses pay rent. Now, tourism, hospitality and events are, of course, some of the sectors that will be badly affected by this new lockdown, and the economy minister said that he would be exonerating them from paying social charges. Now, on top of that, the French government will be offering tax breaks as well to landlords who will wipe some of the rent owed by businesses who've been forced to switch to working from home and so are leaving their offices empty. Now, that could primarily benefit smaller businesses and hotels and restaurants. To finance this, the government will be adding 20 billion euros to this year's budget, which will be adopted next Wednesday. And the largest deal in the world of luxury is back on the table, but with a reduced price tag. The French luxury group LVMH, the owner of Louis Vuitton, Dior and Fendi, is buying the US jeweller Tiffany for 15.8 billion euros, lower than the previous offer of 16.2 billion. The French group will now pay $131.5 a share, down from $135 a share in the original deal. The first deal broke down in a dispute. LVMH walked away from discussions, saying that it couldn't finish the transaction by the deadline that had been set, and citing looming US tariffs on French products. In response, Tiffany took them to court. But this public war of words has now eased, and the acquisition is going ahead, with LVMH coming out of it with a discount of $425 million. Moving now to the United States, where the US economy has grown at its fastest ever pace in the third quarter of this year. GDP was up 33.1% between July and September. Now, that's mostly due to a record surge in consumer spending, and also means that the economy has recovered 2/3 of its output that was lost earlier this year. But analysts are concerned that this positive bounce doesn't actually tell the whole story. The virus is still rampant in the country, and hundreds of thousands of people are still claiming unemployment benefits. On top of that, government aid is drying up with no new fiscal stimulus in sight. Analysts are predicting that the next phase of the recovery will be much slower than the first. Now we can take a look at the global markets today. In Europe, markets closed mixed. The FTSE and CAC 40 closed on the flat line, and Frankfurt's DAX rose by 0.33%. It's a different story in the US, however, where markets are optimistic ahead of third quarter earnings from the big tech companies. That's Amazon, Alphabet, Apple and Facebook. They'll be coming out with their results after the closing bell on Wall Street later today. Shares in those companies rose. Amazon's up by 1.2%, Alphabet up by 3%, Apple by 3.5% and Facebook showing the most gains with a rise of 5.4%. Now, as a result, we're seeing the tech-heavy Nasdaq make the most gains, soaring more than 2%. The S&P 500 has also seen impressive gains, up almost 2%, while the Dow Jones has a more modest climb of 0.1%. We'll, of course, be following those markets and following Wall Street later on this evening.
Yeah, tech stocks don't seem to have had any battering at all, really, have they, from recent events? Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Catherine Bennett, with today's business news. Thank you.